The most powerful mage, Serie, was actually killed, decapitated without even seeing the enemy, taken out instantly. Chapter 1. 144 of the manga is finally out. Spoiler warning. In this chapter, Serie uses a kind of magic that lets her have prophetic dreams, repeatedly foreseeing the future of the banquet in her dreams. But without exception, every outcome she sees ends with her being instantly killed. After multiple attempts, she decides to go meet the Emperor of the Empire on the night before the banquet. That's the gist of this chapter, but there are plenty of details worth thinking about. Straight to the conclusion, will Serie really be killed in the future? I think yes, she will. But Serie is constantly trying to change this outcome. The magic she's using, prophetic dreams, isn't quite the same as seeing the future. From what Serie says, it's more like she's choosing among possible futures. She's testing different key decision points to simulate different results. That means the prophetic dreams allow her to keep making choices and learning from trial and error. But this time might be the last attempt. So, did Serie's outcome really change? There's a very high chance it did. Why? Because of two new variables, Frieren and land. Originally, neither Frieren nor land needed to be part of this mission. They both got pulled into it by accident. Maybe these two will be the key to changing the outcome. So, what are your thoughts on the latest manga plot? Let me know in the comments. A way to defeat Ubel. Even you can easily subdue Ubel. The answer lies in a scene from the latest manga. In her battle against the Shadow Warriors, she couldn't deal any damage to an enemy holding a shield. The shield didn't even get a single scratch, even though Ubel's real Sidon can leave deep marks on walls. Yet, it couldn't do anything to the shield. Keep in mind that her magic is closely tied to her imagination. She can easily slice through clothing reinforced with multiple defensive spells, even cutting through both the person and the clothes at once. This includes Sense, who applied multiple spells to her hair. To others, Sense's hair is incredibly sharp and dangerous. Ubel defeated her without breaking a sweat. According to Ubel, she has seen scissors cut cloth and hair being trimmed. So, no matter how much magic is applied to the clothing or hair, in her eyes, they're just ordinary cloth and hair, meaning she can cut through them. But now, her slashing magic was easily blocked by a shield. I think it might be related to offensive magic. In her fight against Werbel, real Sidon was defended against by offensive magic. Following that same logic, it seems that as long as it's a shield, whether magical or physical, she can't attack it. In other words, if you just hold a shield and keep approaching Ubel, she won't be able to defeat you. Heck, holding a shield might even prevent her from activating Sorganai. So, a single shield can easily counter Ubel. Now, after you've subdued Ubel, what would you do with her? Let me know in the comments. Ubel is the most unusual mage in this world. The truth is, she only knows one spell. In the last video, we talked about how Ubel doesn't use the most basic magic that every other mage relies on. She came from a poor background and never received systematic magical training. Common attack spells, defensive magic, she can't use any of them. The only magic she actually possesses is spell copying. Well, strictly speaking, she doesn't even understand how it works. In this world, magic operates under one core principle. Magic is a world of imagination. If you can't imagine it, you can't do it. But that imagination has to be based on something. You need to understand how the spell functions. A great example from the anime, you might be a water mage, but you can't just extract water from inside an enemy's body. Why? Because you need to understand how water is distributed and flows within a person. In other words, magic in this world has a certain scientific basis. Then imagination takes over. But Ubel is completely different. The spells she uses now, whether it's real Sidon or Sorganile, aren't something she learned herself. She copied them using spell copying. She doesn't even need to understand how a spell works to use it. But spell copying has one drawback. She has to be able to understand the person she's copying from. My guess is that the reason she doesn't use defensive magic is because she sees no meaning in defense, or maybe she just isn't interested in it. She can't comprehend why someone would rely on defensive magic, so she can't copy it from anyone else. So, why do you think she doesn't use defensive magic? Let me know in the comments. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Ubel doesn't actually know defensive magic at all. Whether it was her fight against Werbel or the battle with her clone, she never once used defensive magic. Heck, she doesn't even use offensive magic either. In modern magic, these two types of spells are the most basic. You could say that anyone who wants to become a mage starts by learning these, just like how Frieren taught Fern, but Ubel has never used either of them. From her fight with Werbel, we can see, when she uses real Sidon, it creates fluctuations in magical energy that can be detected through magic perception. So even though her attacks seem invisible, they actually leave a detectable trail. That means you could theoretically use defensive magic to block them. Since Ubel's real Sidon is a magical attack, it should, in theory, be blockable with defensive magic. And that's exactly what happened. Werbel used defensive magic and blocked it. So Ubel should be aware of this weakness. In her fight against the clone, you'd expect her to use defensive magic to protect herself. After all, a barrier created by defensive magic would count as an obstruction and wouldn't be considered part of the whole by Sorganile. But she never used it in that fight. What does this tell us? Ubel is not your typical mage. mage. She never went through conventional magic training. Heck, maybe there's only one spell she can really use. So follow me. In the next video, I'll break down Ubel's magic. Ever wonder why Stark acted so cocky when he first met Frieren? I mean, he even sat there talking to her with his legs crossed. We all know the truth. Back then, Stark had no real combat experience. He was the kid who froze in front of a dragon, a total coward who only accidentally became the village hero. Even Eisen himself called Stark a coward. So, why would a guy like that dare to sit all relaxed in front of Frieren? If you often sit with your legs crossed, you might have noticed something. That posture pins one leg down. And what does that have to do with Stark? Everything. He was scared. He was trying to hide his nervousness. The moment Frieren introduced herself, he knew Eisen had sent her. After all, he'd run away from his master. Frieren showing up meant he'd been caught, so he was nervous, terrified even. But it was their first meeting, so he pretended to be calm. Crossing his legs was a way to hold himself still, but the truth is, Stark was actually a strong fighter. So why was he so afraid of enemies? Frieren said it was because he lacked experience fighting monsters, that he was scared of failing. But I think the real reason wasn't inexperience. It was Eisen. Stark had never once beaten his master in a fight, so in his mind, every opponent felt as powerful as Eisen. No wonder he was scared. Once Stark gets past that fear, he's gonna be one incredible warrior. So, what do you think? Why was Stark really so afraid of fighting? Let me know in the comments. Ever wonder about one thing? Why did Himmel never confess his feelings to Frieren? Sure, from an elf's perspective, Himmel was basically a baby, way too short-lived to even notice. But emotionally, Frieren was the one who was still kind of clueless, a kid who didn't really get human emotions. Himmel was the actual adult in the room. He understood things better. He was going to tell her how he felt until he heard Vol's story, and that changed everything. Why? Vol is a dwarf. His wife was human. Even though dwarves live much longer than humans, Vol still ended up suffering alone for 300 years after his wife passed. He spent the rest of his life bound to that village, keeping his promise to her. That was Himmel's worst nightmare. If Frieren actually said yes to being with him, they'd only have a few decades of happiness. Then Himmel would grow old and die. Frieren would still look young. The time they shared might only be 1% of Frieren's life. But what about the other 99%? Himmel couldn't bear the thought. He didn't want Frieren spending the remaining 99% of her life slowly getting over the pain of losing him, because he loved her too much. That's why he never confessed. He refused to use his short-lived love to tie down her entire existence. And honestly, even if he did tell her, Frieren probably wouldn't have understood what his confession really meant. Actually, Seria's favorite disciple is none other than Frieren, because Serie herself admitted it. She never even said she liked Flamma. When Serie first met Frieren, she couldn't stop praising her and was deeply fond of this talented mage. Serie loves magic and wants her disciples to reach the pinnacle of it, but so far no disciple has lived up to her expectations, not even Flamme. In fact, Serie was quite disappointed in Flamme because she had the potential to reach the top, yet she didn't. Instead, she wanted to make magic accessible to everyone. She died without fulfilling Serie's hopes for her. Every disciple chosen by Serie had the potential to ascend, so why did none of them make it? The answer is time. A mage's magical power requires years of accumulation, and magical research also demands time. Humans don't have that much time. Just mastering one type of magic can take a lifetime. Take Lernen, for example. He had extraordinary talent. The golem magic he developed integrated defense, offense, and healing, incredibly versatile. But sadly, his life is nearing its end. He no longer has time to achieve greater wonders. Many have talent, but not time. Frieren is different. As an elf, she has nearly limitless time. That's exactly what Serie wanted. Frieren has both the talent and the time. You could say that if Frieren followed Serie's vision, she would become the most powerful mage in the world. Well, actually, she already is. So who do you think is Serie's favorite disciple? Let me know in the comments.